As populations continue to age, sorry, I got a. Oh, okay. As populations continue to age, we are only going to see more and more economic and social consequences of those two things. So, what we're looking at here is the economics of things. Well, first of all, who are we talking about? We're talking about old. We're talking about people 65 or older for the purposes of this. I'm not talking about young. I mean, AP read on a question with this, and they were defining old people as like 30-year-olds. No, sorry, 30 is not that old. If you look down there in the bottom left-hand corner, there's a nice chart there that says people over the age of 65 just accounting for more health expenditures. That's going to be more and more true. Old people cost more for that, and for healthcare expenditures. Why? They're old and they have more health problems. But then it's also increased cost of government programs. You think of things like Social Security, where Social Security in this country is going to mean you just have more and more people older and you have less and less people paying into it. So you have a problem there. And how are you going to do that? You also have the fact that Social Security pensions in European countries and things like that. And this is where, it's a lot of your stage 4 and your stage 5 countries are in these predicaments. So how are you going to get people to fill those jobs as well? Because the older people just won't be able to work as much as they could when they were younger. Even though some might try to fill some labor jobs, you won't have all of them. So that's where do you need to have a different migration policies. This is where Japan comes into play, where Japan has one of the oldest populations on the planet here, as I'll show you. Japan is one of the oldest countries on the planet. 46.1 years of age is the average. Well, how does that look then when Japan traditionally has had a very restrictive migration policy? But then also, correspond that to a country like Niger, who's at 15 years old is their average age. Think about that. If you're 15-year-old, you're the average age of the country. United States is at almost 38. So by 2050, share of 80-plus-year-olds in most countries. In the U.S., it will double. There's only going to be more and more old people. And so then you also have more jobs tailoring toward old people as well. And so now let's look here at some of these charts. We're going to go through these social consequences here in a second. Pro-NAS policies. This is just me making sure you have them down in your note. All right, here we go. Estimates of global population by age. You're only going to see an increase. So younger than 15, that population is going to be growing, but relatively stagnant. 15 to 64, that one's still growing, but by far the largest growth in terms of total percent increase will be your people 65 and older. Okay, just look at it from 1950 to 2010. Okay, it jumped by 4, and this is in thousands. So this would be billion. This would be, well, you get the point. Okay, next, changing housing stock. We're going to have to change our houses. This is the house I grew up in. My parents moved from it. Maybe you can start to figure out, why did my parents move from this? Well, how about a lawn? This is also a split level house that all the bedrooms were upstairs and there was a walk down to get out, and it was just too much. And so they didn't want to have to take care of that as they got older. This is my grandpa, Russell Nelson. He was trained on social services for a long time in the country. Why? He lived till he was 98. He went on Medicare, because we care for the elderly and aid the youth, at age 65, and he was there until he was 98. Well, and he was on Social Security, and you can see his face here. He had a lot of skin cancer that went on his face, and so radiation treatments there, and he was expensive for the healthcare world. And it's a strain on social services, and he wasn't paying into Social Security really at the end of his life. He didn't have a job. He was living in a nursing home. This is role reversal. Be nice to your kids. They'll choose your nursing home. Good little gift here. Basically, this is getting at the fact that, yes, your parents might take care of you when you're younger, but you take care of them when they are older. I'll use my grandpa again as an example. My mom knew his whole health history like the back of her hand. She knew all of it. And so she went to every doctor's appointment. She went to everything. She cleaned her house, or his house. She took care of him in a lot of ways as he got older. Wasn't that role reversal where the kid is now taking care of the parent? Changing consumer expectations. This is where we're now making more and more products for older people. This is an example with adult diapers. Japan way outsells adult diapers to kid diapers every year. Changing services as well. This is just needing more things for older people. Japan is another example. This can't figure out. Japan's kind of at the leading edge of all this with old people. What they do is they have cheerleaders, and the cheerleaders are old people, and they go and cheerlead at young kids' events. I will let this one stand the way it is. Generational conflict. You've all heard millennials just get hated upon by older generations. Well, guess what? You know the first problem with younger kids? Aristotle is the first uh, one that I ever saw with that. And so you just have generational conflict about how to do things. And that's only becoming more and more true that as everyone has access to media now. And so how does that play out? And so countries also then try to put in pronatalist policies to get people to have more kids. And as we just talked about in an earlier section of this unit, that really has not worked. What you know, I'm going to go back here to the word slide. Economic consequences, social consequences. I think the biggest one for me that I see of how this is going to just play out of there's really nothing we can do to change the demographics. We are going to continue to get older, short of some natural disasters or just not goodness going on. I mean, our countries are going to get older, and how do we take care of old people as they get older? It's really hard, and there's no country that has the answer yet. Japan is working on it, but how is everybody else going to figure it out too?